Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show, we're talking about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Mayfair Witches, Season 1, Episode 3. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, we have that opening again with Suzanne and her family, and it does seem like we are continuing that conversation because I don't know if it's like her, I'm assuming it's her mom, but someone is dying and she wants to do everything she can to save her, but it's like, no, like, I'm going to die regardless, but kind of let me go out on my own terms. But it's like, right, like, why do you fear death? Death is like, yes, and it's a conversation that kind of plays out in the episode where it's like, death, it isn't like the end. It's like, we're separated for like a minute, that connection's cut for a minute, but then like, I get to join the earth with my mother and her mother's mother, you know, type of situation. So it's like, right, we're all... So, before, I keep making a comparison to, like, not Legacies, the originals, where it's like, right, the witches' powers comes from their ancestors. So, this, we're more so leaning into, like, the mother nature of it all. So, I think it's like I don't know if it's kind of like a Gaia type of situation of, like, the god is like this earth being, and you're all becoming part of her. It's all kind of interwoven. Very similar to, like, the whole... mycelium in Motherland, Fort Salem, kind of something in that same regard, where it's like, right, when we all die, we all go back to the earth, we all become a part of something larger. So, because it's like, right, a midwife, it was like, right, we aren't just about curses too, we're also about death and kind of helping transition someone over to that next phase of things. So, back to present day, Rowan is, near, Deidre, and, Carlotta try to reach out to her, it's like, hey, my darling, like, you should come back with us, but she went with Cyprian instead. And it's so interesting because I guess in her mind, and Carlotta as well as her sister's mind, it's like, right, we're doing everything to protect this child. It's like you kept Deidre locked up, kind of locked away, drugged up, because that was their only way to keep Lasher at bay. Because when he's bound to someone, once again, that was a whole conversation that she had with Deidre had with Carlotta. It's like, if I'm away, that means he's away. That was the only way in their mind. It's like whatever Lasher is, he's been tied to their family for a very, very long time, and so it's like the last person he was bound to before he could get to Rowan, he was still stuck on Deidre. It's like, despite her being as young as she was, because she was like, she was a teenager at the time. It's like, right, they spent those, like 30 years or whatever, like keeping her locked away and drugged up, because it was their way of making sure that they kept him locked away. And so poor Delphine later on, it's like, right, you've taken care of her, Deidre, for so long, and like they needed a sacrifice, and you happen to be it. And it's like, and they kept hearing the thudding, and it's just like, right, he doesn't like someone else having a necklace, but it's like, right, she has to be that sacrifice. I mean, for one, they blamed her for Deidre's death in the first place, because it's like, if it wasn't for you, you had one job, you looked after her, but you should have. And it's like, she just wanted Deidre to be free, because it's like, right, who knows, like, because she's been with Deidre looking after her for a long time, but we don't know if she kind of knew Deidre before her aunts had her drugged up and everything. So for her being like, right, Deidre's free, she's finally out and about, I want her to kind of be able to live her life. And it's like, no one saw what was about to happen, happening. So, and that was just brutal, just like her bashing her head against the wall. And it's like, I guess, regardless of, I don't know if they'd have to immediately find a new host, like once she's dead, or is it just like even in death, like I don't know, because it seems like the moment Deidre died, he was kind of freed from her, but obviously he's still bound to that necklace. But even without it, he still has some freedom. Like, I think there's cracks in whatever spell or whatever it is that binds him to that necklace. There's cracks in it because he went to see Cortland, and he's able to kind of influence and do other stuff despite being, but he just doesn't have like the full range. Whoever has the necklace, he has a full connection with, can move with them, can interact with them most. Like, everything else is almost like phantom limbs. He's kind of like a phantom limb. He's kind of more a shadow, and other cases, but when he's with you, who is ever wearing a necklace, it fully connects him. They're kind of fully in sync, whereas he's kind of out of sync with the rest of the world. He kind of has to focus to really influence and be a part of the world, because he can do stuff like when he broke the window and it cut Cortland's face, or when he shook like the hotel or like the paintings or whatever and shifted them after Deidre finished talking to Carlotta near the end of last episode. So, but I'm assuming he'd still be bound to the corpse after. Well, no, because I'm curious. They'd have to probably find someone else in the meantime. Because it's like, right, you went out of your way to make sure the necklace was taken off of Deidre's body, because I guess they couldn't take the... Well, maybe the thing is, if they left it on Deidre's body, eventually someone would have taken it off, and it would have gotten... That would have just allowed him to kind of run free, I guess, to some extent. So whatever the case may be, we don't know the full ins and outs of it, because even Cyprian himself explaining it to Rowan, even he doesn't know all the details about it. He just knows this is a being that's been connected to your family for a very, very long time. We also learned not all the Mayfairs, like the Mayfair has a long lineage, but not everyone has powers. Carlotta doesn't, Cortland doesn't, which obviously, like, we already know there's beef between them. I think it's the Deidre stuff, but who knows, like, how far back that goes. Their issues with each other, but obviously Rowan's very powerful in her gift, and that's what kind of overwhelmed Cyprian. I am curious why he has so many pairs of gloves. Is it just like, oh, you need a matching pair to kind of go with the outfit you're wearing because you have to kind of be matching? Or is it, or reading too deeply into it, I'm wondering, could it be that eventually his powers, because he didn't say like it completely blocks it. It does seem like it mitigates it. Because even she had talked to Rowan, was like, yeah, like when you touch me, like it didn't help you. He's like, yeah, but your gift is a little different. Now part of me wonders, could it be that eventually his gloves will wear, like eventually his power seeps through his gloves, so maybe he has to change gloves every once in a while, because if he doesn't, like eventually if he wears the same gloves over and over again, I mean, maybe he just has them just in case something happens, or maybe it is, like I said, just, you know, stylizing, things have to match, like the gloves with the drip, or is it just eventually his powers kind of seep through every pair of gloves, so he has to constantly change gloves so that his powers have to kind of get readjusted. He gets readjusted to, like, if he gets too comfortable in a pair of gloves, eventually his powers... I don't know. They didn't really explain that. They just explained that his gloves block his powers. Once again, kind of finally, like, saying what exactly it is. He can see the memory of anything associated with a person or an object. So... What was interesting, though, is when he went back to the hotel and he tried to use his powers and they were blocked. He was like, that's never happened before. Someone literally wiped the memories from that elevator. So he ended up having to go to Deidre's body, and he read her memories, and he saw the day Rowan was taken from her. We don't know. That's the memory we saw, but we have no idea what else he saw. He saw and felt that, because he did say, like, that was the strongest memory left in the body, so that might have been the only thing he saw, was that heartbreaking scene and feeling what Deidre felt, that heartbreak she felt. But, like, the day she died, when she died, like, someone got in the elevator with her, and it's like, right, so obviously it wasn't Lasher, because he wouldn't do that, because despite whatever this whole thing is, he cared about Deidre, and whoever it was able to... I don't know if it was because, like, it's for the greater good. Hey, we have to stop Lasher, so we have to kill Deidre so that her and her daughter never reunite, because if they did, it made the whole transition for Lasher easy. I don't know if that's the justification for that or not. There's also that scene where Rowan met Cyprian's sister, and it's like, oh, she's like, oh, do you feel connected to that baby? Because she's like, oh, this is my first time being a surrogate. And it's like, no, I feel connected to the heartburn. And Rowan's like, I'm sure she feels connected to you. It's like, what? It's like, yeah, you might not feel anything to her, but I'm sure she feels connected to you. I mean, obviously Rowan's feeling all that she's feeling, because it's like, cool, your mom lied to you for so long, and you're finding out that your mom knew about it, that obviously she'd been in contact with professionals ever since you had your first incident as a little girl. She's kept an eye on this situation. She knew it was real, but she lied to you, made you think it was on inside your head. Once again, I brought that up previously when you found out, wait, my adoption situation isn't what I thought it was, and now you're finding out, once again, your mom, you end up finding out more and more that she's a liar and kept a lot of stuff from you. But then you also have the fact is, you kind of met your biological mom for like 1 second before you watched her throat get sliced open and dying right in front of you. Dying in your arms, in fact, as she bleeds out. But, so of course, like a lot of that would kind of surface when she sees Cyprian's sister with a baby, and it's like, because at the time she didn't know about Deidre's circumstances, because it's like, right, did she give me up? Did she even love me? You know, why did she give me up? Not knowing the truth of it all until Cyprian tells her later. Well, Lasher actually told her first, because like him messing with her head. I did love that notion. I think that is a beautiful notion of love. I mean, of the people you love being gone. It's like they're never gone. The connection's only severed for a little bit, for a minute, but they're always around you. You know, we might not always be able to see them, but they're always there. And I've talked about that previously too, like the notion of those we've lost are never truly gone unless we, as long as we're still here to remember them, they will always live on. They will always be a part of us. They will never be completely gone. I always think that's kind of a beautiful sentiment. But Lasher really getting to Deidre to the point, to Rowan, setting a fire in the house. Setting a fire just to get her out of the apartment because there's wards around it to protect her. Then you also have the whole situation of pretending to be three different people. The lady standing right next to you, then himself with the mask on because he knows if he showed his real face. Well, she's seen him, what Lasher looks like in photos. So, and choosing the name Adonis, I think, was interesting. And then later on, popping up as Deidre herself. The moment he's just kind of like, told her the truth and everything about, like, right, they stripped you from my arms, but you'll never kind of be whole, like, until you kind of fully embrace all of this and kind of, but it's like, Rowan eventually saw through it. It's like, right, you're not her, you know? Because like, how is this possible? Because he was showing her, like, see, the dead are around you now. Is that real? Is that kind of what's really there underneath the surface that normal people can't see? Or was that him filling her head with that, being like, oh, you can see the dead, so it made it easier for her to kind of wrap her head around it and kind of believe it because she's seeing it already. When he shows up later on as Deidre, it's like, oh, make you believe it's real. Because if you believe it, it makes you a lot more susceptible. I mean, I think she naturally has, like, and even she asked Cyprian about it. It's like, right, was there something in that drink I took, or was it simply, no, he's able to get inside of my head regardless? Once again, we don't know the limitations of all this. But Cortland did say something interesting. It's like, oh, she's the 13th witch. So maybe it's a generational thing. Like, he goes after, like, obviously the number 13 significant, but I'm wondering, like, is she technically considered is she like, because it's like you're the 13th witch, or you like the 13th generation of witches in this family or whatever? Because I think the torch gets passed down from daughter to daughter, because it's Rowan now, but prior to that, obviously it was Deidre, and I think prior to that was her mother. So you would assume this has to date back to Suzanne. Like I said, I believe she has to be like a Mayfair ancestor. I don't know if like she's their oldest ancestor, like when it comes to like the witch stuff. But I mean, it seems like it goes back even further because like I said, what appears to be her mom was already talking about like, right, all that I've taught you, and I want to be like join in the earth with my mother and her mother. So, but it seems like things might have popped off with Suzanne. Like, that might be where the Lasher stuff might have started, potentially. I don't know. There's also this interesting moment when Cyprian went to visit Deidre's body, and the medical examiner and stuff when he saw Cyprian touch her body, he's like, hey, this is kind of a meeting we have. And Cyprian's like, what's this all about? It's like, because she's a witch, man. She's a Mayfair. So it's kind of known that the Mayfairs are for one a powerful and influential family, especially with Cortland. But there's already whispers and stuff about them being witches and rumors. And so, I mean, that was already something we kind of learned about last episode. But that guy being like, oh yeah, like almost seems like he's part of some group that's like aware of witches and stuff. And he was trying to get Cyprian, but Cyprian's like, yo, bro, witches aren't real. I'm like, feels like because they went out of their way for that, it don't seem insignificant. And that seems pretty significant. Like that might be a bigger... I don't know if they're going to be like witch hunters necessarily. I mean, who knows if those might be things in this universe. Like maybe that's also like why witches kind of have to, Salem witch trials isn't enough reason for you to kind of keep it low key here in the U.S. alone. You know, I mean, who knows? I don't know the history of that. I know the history of it here in the U.S. Yes, because of the Salem witch trial, but like on the more European scale of the world, like I don't know what the history is like when it comes to witches and stuff like that. I would assume it's kind of the same, but, you know, once again, I'm ignorant on the subject. So I would wonder if there's going to be kind of like a witch hunters type of thing going on in this universe. Maybe, maybe not. And I'm curious if there's going to be any correlation with that storyline, with that, like I said, that little bit of that one scene in the episode or not. I mean, who knows what other organizations exist, because Cyprian said, right, he belongs to an organization that investigates the unexplained. So, it was also interesting, too, because he was saying, like, right, your mom, Ellie, was in contact with my predecessor. So, Cyprian hasn't been essentially Rowan's caseworker the entire time. He's probably fresh to it. Because he said the situation would, I mean, it makes sense because he's probably about Rowan's age, if not maybe a little older. So it makes sense why. Because the situation is like Ellie got in contact with his predecessor about the incident from when she was a little girl. That once again, like, oh, it was all inside your head type of thing. So he wants to help her have a better understanding of her abilities. It can give her a better grasp of it, and she can defend herself. So I'm curious what she saw at the end when she touched his hands. I don't know whether he ended up sharing his memories with her, or maybe she got to share, like, because I think what he sees, she got to experience as well. So whether it's like I don't know about, like, maybe he was able to share that memory with Rowan and share, like, hey, as in, like, shares that memory he got from Deidre, that strong memory of, like, how she felt and the day you were born. Like, maybe he was able to kind of, I mean, he's also able to maybe show her so much of her own past, too. So maybe it's a culmination of all of that. That's currently where things stand. It's definitely going to be interesting to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. Caught glimpses of the preview of the next episode unintentionally, so she's definitely going to be interacting with her family a lot more, and what those conversations look like, what Carlotta's going to end up saying, what her other aunt's going to end up saying, what Cortland's going to say, and who's going to try and convince her, like, oh, we're on your side, we want what's best for you. Because currently the only person she can really fully trust, I mean, not even fully trust, but, you know, maybe a little bit of trust, as he admits, and she admits, is Cyprian. So, also, the conversation about his sister never came up, so I'm wondering, is that going to end up being something? Maybe, maybe not. She also doesn't seem to know what he's mixed up in. I mean, it makes sense, like, right, the Mayfair, some people have power, some people don't, so it probably makes sense, like, he has abilities, but his sister doesn't, because she's like, I get it, he's the CIA, FBI stuff, because she probably doesn't actually know what her brother does. Either those are actual covers of, like, she knows he has a government job, which this probably does technically count as, like, a more supernatural side of things government job, but I don't know, like, but that a government job might be all that he explains, and she knows he's super secretive about it, so she's like, oh, CIA, FBI, whatever, you know, I'll keep quiet about it if it's a work thing. So I don't know, I'm interested to kind of explore a lot more about that, once again, more about this world, and obviously we'll be learning more and more about the Mayfairs and Lasher as the episodes go by, but I'm interested to see what ends up happening next in the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.